the man in the know, joins us right now on the Fan Hotline. He covers the Browns for the Chronicle Telegram, and you can read his work at brownszone.com. He's Mr. Scott Petrak. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Scotty.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
Before we get into anything else, when does the Malachi Corley era begin? Because one carry, one touch, and a gain of 31 yards is not enough.
Well, they need something at receiver, so
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some more Malachi Corley. It felt like Isaiah Bond got a bunch of run yesterday in some high-leverage situations, and it was not able to work between him and Gabriel. Not that it was all Bond's fault, but I think they just got to keep trying. And, there's a little buzz about Corley when he came out of college a couple years ago, so why not?
All
Why
right,
not?
Can we get into this? Are they switching quarterbacks or are they firing the coach? Let me get right to it because that's what everybody wants to hear today.
Well, maybe I'm disappointing people, but I don't think they're going to do either. Kevin said after the game, I know he kept saying we're going to look at everything, but he also said he's sticking with Dillon Gabriel, so I don't think he's going to change that coming out of the bye. I think it changes at some point. I'm pretty confident we're going to see Shedeur Sanders. I just don't think it's against the Jets coming out of the bye, and I don't think they're making a coaching change at midseason. I think he gets a chance to finish the season and then see how many wins they get to, and they'll reevaluate that and Andrew Berry and everything depending on how bad it finishes. I get it. I get how bad yesterday looked. I get it that they're 2-6. I'm not sure a coaching change does, or frankly, I don't think it does any good at this point. And I think it's a little unfair to only give Dillon Gabriel 4 starts. I get that he hasn't played well. I saw yesterday's game. I think you got to give a rookie quarterback more time, and he's not getting much help. We know the receiver corps is terrible. We talked about that a billion times. And it's hard to play quarterback in that spot. Not that Gabriel was any good. I get the interceptions. I get the safety. And I understand how this projects. Going forward, do I think he's the answer? No. But I do think if you're trying to get an accurate evaluation, it's more than 4 games when the stuff around you is not very good and you threw 52 times in Pittsburgh and you played in London. Like, we all know what happened. He had a weather game. I just think he should have more time.
Scott, I agree with everything you just said. People who are saying that the guy can't play in the league after 4 games, I think it's an absurd thing to say for a guy who was very successful in college. That said, I tend to agree with you. If he were to be able to become a starting quarterback in the NFL at this point and a really good one, I think people would be surprised. Wouldn't you?
Oh, there's no doubt, right? And I think part of this, guys, is what you thought coming into the league, right? Your perception. And my perception was Dillon Gabriel wasn't a starting quarterback coming out of college, right? I would not have drafted him in the 3rd round, so I'm sure that affects the way I view his play. So when it looks like he's small in the pocket, I go, I saw that coming, right? When he misses a throw or it takes him, he's got to get out of the pocket to try to throw that pass to Isaiah Bond, and then it's too late. And maybe if he just hung in the pocket and was bigger, he could have let it go earlier. Those are my preconceived notions. So I don't think he's going to be a top 12 quarterback in this league ever. But I just don't think it's right to make that decision after 4 games, given the circumstances. And I just think that's, I think everybody's so quick to make judgments in this league, and I get it. But how many times have we seen quarterbacks, you look across the league, they were bad with their first team, and then they figure it out somewhere else. And I'm not saying that about Dillon Gabriel. I'm just saying the reality is sometimes people need time, and 4 starts in this team with this team is not enough to get an accurate gauge on a quarterback.
I'm just curious because the schedule came out today for the rest of the week. Andrew Berry's not speaking. I'd heard that Andrew was going to speak last week on Wednesday. I'm just like, at what point is Andrew going to come out and talk about what's going on, especially with thinking a bye week, rather than Kevin having to sit here and answer personnel questions? I get it. I understand why Kevin's got to answer the question immediately.
It's not really fair to Kevin, though.
It's not. And when you look at, and I'm not comparing the Browns to the Cavs or or the Guardians, but especially the Guardians. Like when the Guardians make a move that is like, it could even be like a Class A trade, they'll come out and talk about it. But why does Kevin have to answer every one of these questions when we have a general manager?
It's a great question. I agree that I would prefer how the Guardians do it, right, where the GM talks much more often, and I am a big fan of transparency and availability, and I would prefer that. The Browns are not set up that way, and a lot of teams in the NFL aren't. I don't think GMs talk much in the NFL. I know Andrew Berry has traditionally talked during the bye week. It doesn't look like he's going to this week. There's no rule that he needs to, and if you look across the league, there's not a whole lot of GMs that do talk over the bye week. That's their prerogative. I think in this setting, how this season has gone, given that he traded 2 of the 4 quarterbacks that were in that competition, and maybe you're 1 and you're 2, I think you want to hear the GM talk about that. You want to hear the GM talk about the state of the receiving corps and why he ignored it or didn't do what he needed to do, and if that's the reason the team isn't where it needs to be. You want to hear him talk about Shadur Sanders' development. You want another voice besides just Kevin Stefanski, who has to do it, 3 or 4 times a week. So,
right.
From my perspective, it would be better if he talked. I'm sure the Browns think, is it really going to help if he comes out and talks? And we do know that Andrew Berry doesn't tend to say a lot when he does talk. But I would always want to hear from the GM regardless.
Scott Petrak's joining us, brownzone.com, where you can read all of Scott's coverage of the Browns for the Chronicle-Telegram. You just mentioned something we were talking about earlier. If you're going to bring in Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, why do you trade them before they barely even get into the season and get nothing but moving up a couple of spots in the draft and a 5th-rounder in return? And leave yourself with 2 rookies taken in the 3rd and the 5th. It's not like you left yourself with a first-round quarterback.
Yeah, it's a great question. Here's where I think the whole way we view this Browns season is difficult, because I think we all know, we just have an understanding in the back of our heads that it's not just about wins and losses in 2025. And we've talked about how the roster is in transition and they're in some level of rebuild, right? Doesn't mean they can't win this year, but we acknowledge that they didn't add a lot of pieces in the offseason because they're trying to get out of salary cap jail, all those things. But yet when you're Sunday watching the game, it's all about, why aren't they winning? Why are they getting blown out? So it's kind of a difficult spot to be in. So when the Browns traded the 2 veteran quarterbacks, it's because they wanted to see the rookies. And they'd seen Joe Flacco for 4 games and determined it wasn't working and he was turning the ball over too much. Now, that also could have been a premature decision to make. Right? Now, I don't know if Joe Flacco would have played any better because the receivers haven't got any better, but I certainly think he gives you a better chance to win than Dillon Gabriel does. And I would probably say Shadur Sanders too, although we haven't seen him. And I felt that way when they benched Joe. But it was like, okay, well, you need to see the rookies. You want to see the rookies. So that move made some sense at the time. Now you go, well, Dillon Gabriel's not good enough, so why isn't Joe Flacco there? The Kenny Pickett trade is a head-scratcher because they liked him. They thought he did a lot of things they wanted, right, the mobility that they're looking for in the quarterback. I don't know if they didn't, when he got here in practice for a while, they said, all right, he's not good enough. Or the hamstring cost him the starting job, and they're like, hey, we really value a 5th-round draft pick, and we're going to turn to the rookies at some point anyway. But I think you can certainly question both those trades, and I might even question the Pickett one more just because I do think they had high hopes for him.
Yep.
And we didn't get to see a lot of him because of that hamstring in training camp. And, I know that Andrew Berry's turned 5th-round pick into Amari Cooper, right? I also know that 5th-round picks are just not that valuable. And even as we talk about this trade deadline, it's like, how many 5th-round picks can a team have? So I just don't find getting back a 5th-round pick for a quarterback that 3 months earlier you thought could be your starter, that doesn't feel like great value to me.
Agreed. I agree completely. Do you think Andrew Berry will chat this week? It's the bye week. You usually hear from the GM. I don't believe there's anything, at least that's been announced so far. I would sure hope we hear from him.
Yeah, I hope so. Last time I checked in, it was TBD. So I'm not crazy optimistic, but I haven't ruled it out yet.
The defense has had some moments, some good moments. They gave up a lot of points, a lot of yards yesterday. They're on the field a long time. Overall, good defense, great defense, mediocre defense. What do you think? I would say good. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'd go between good and great, whatever that, I'm not very good, just a little better than good. I feel like it's a legit defense, and if you gave it support with an offense that stayed on the field, I know that hasn't always been an issue this year with time of possession. It was yesterday, and the Browns couldn't sustain a drive, and the defense was out there a bunch. I think it's gotten to the point where they are taking more chances, and that can lead to some big plays. And we saw that yesterday against a good Patriots team with a really good quarterback and a really good play caller. And I just feel like this defense is being put in a ton of bad spots over and over, and that leads to games like yesterday. And we've seen a couple of those games, right? The game in Baltimore. But I just think if it was a level playing field, this is I think it's a top 5 defense in this league. I really do.
All right, let's talk about Myles Garrett for a second. If I had 5 sacks in a game, and I played yesterday, and my offense didn't do anything for me, and this has been going on all year, how upset is he? Like, how mad do you think he is at this point? He's got to be frustrated. We kind of saw a little of that frustration yesterday, and if you were him, would you be saying trade me?
Well, no, I would not be saying trade me. I think that ship has sailed. I think he knows that they can't trade him given the huge contract and the salary cap ramifications.
If he wanted out of here bad enough, he would say forget about some of the stuff, some of the guaranteed stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I can't imagine, but somebody else would probably pay him on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't see that, right? I mean, you don't see guys say, okay, rip up my contract and trade me. So I just think he knows that it's not a reality. I think when he signed the extension in March or February that he knew this was a possibility, and he's hoping things get better. I think it's really interesting how Myles Garrett's viewed, because a couple weeks ago, it was in Pittsburgh, right? He talked about being frustrated and how, we lose the same way every week. And my social media was filled with people killing Myles Garrett for saying that. Mm-hmm. You took the money, you knew what you signed up for. Yeah. And then after yesterday's game, he gets 5 sacks. I feel like the narrative is shifted, and everybody's like, well, of course he's frustrated. Why wouldn't you be frustrated? They're terrible. He's playing great. So it's really interesting how we look at it. I think Myles has played great almost since the day he got here. He continues to play great. He had an all-time game yesterday, and I know he's frustrated. I know he wants to win. We talked to him about passing Reggie White, and he talks about people only care about winning, and that's how these greats are remembered. And I do think that frustrates Myles Garrett, that maybe he'll be remembered as a guy that just lost all the time, and he doesn't want that. So I think all those things are real. All the emotions are real. But I like what he said yesterday after the game, how, obviously he would have traded the sacks or thrown away the sacks for a win. But he also said, I got to talk to these guys. I got to make sure nobody quits. I got to lead us. And I think he's really trying to do that. I just wonder when the frustration will really get to him, because we saw that at the end of last year. It did, and that's how the trade request started. I think he's in a better position to handle that, but if they keep losing, who knows?
Brownzone.com, where you can read all of Scott's work. Scott, thank you, bud.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Scott Petrak, covering the team for the Chronicle Telegram.